Well, welcome to the Institute of Managers and Leaders and our 6th webinar for today, for the IML ANZ Development Day. It's been a huge day of learning. I know the facilitators have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait for this last session with Kerry-Ann Cassidy on emotional intelligence for remote work success. As we've said throughout today, it's not just about the chaos of the COVID-19 situation that as managers and leaders we've faced. It's also looking forward and using what the experiences we've had and the skills we've learnt through this period to take us into the recovery mode. So I'm really looking forward to this next topic. Emotional intelligence is a skill that obviously we focus on immensely at the Institute. It's obviously essential for managers and leaders. And we certainly promote it through all of our programs, Essentials, Foundations, and Accelerate, and we also do it with a range of workshops. And Kerry-Ann has done a range of workshops for many of our corporate clients around emotional intelligence. So it's certainly a skill that can be taught and an essential skill for managers and leaders. We live in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So what does that all mean, and how do we adapt? For leaders, VUCA means being more agile, flexible in the face of all this change. And there's never been so much change I've certainly experienced than in the last 8 weeks, as people have pivoted businesses and pivoted their own leadership styles to a virtual world. How do leaders achieve this during rapid pace of change whilst working remotely? Kerry-Ann today will talk about dealing in the VUCA world and how your own emotional intelligence can ensure you're adapting yourself and your team for remote work success. The webinar will examine the following key things. What is VUCA? The effects of VUCA, how to overcome VUCA, both internally and externally. And there's no better person to present this than Kerry-Ann. As I said, Kerry-Ann's done a lot of work with our corporate clients on workshops, particularly around emotional intelligence. And she's also works with a lot of professionals, managers and leaders to develop and motivate and engage workplaces through the work that she does as an educator, publisher, coach and consultant. Kerry specialises in the science of emotional intelligence, as I've said, and incorporates the knowledge, tools and techniques from the fields of neuroscience, positive psychology, and has delivered, as I said, a number of IML's leadership programs. Kerry-Ann, it's wonderful to welcome you. What I would remind all of our participants on this 6th and final webinar is that they have their action plans ready. As I said, today is not about a box ticking exercise. It's actually about learning and taking away initiatives to embed into the workplace, which is what, as an institute, we believe through our learning and development is most paramount. It's the outcomes for you that matter. It's the things that you'll take back to develop you, yourself and your staff and your organisation that matters. I'd also encourage everyone for questions. Please send through questions throughout the webinar through the question box. We've had enormous amounts of questions today and comments about the sessions and about what they're learning. So please keep that up and I'll feed that back at the end of the session. And any questions we can't get to, we'll certainly take on notice and work with Kerry-Ann to reply to those questions in time. All of today's materials will be made available to participants after today's sessions with the recording, the resources and the playbook of everything today will be sent to everyone. So it's certainly, as I said, a delight to welcome Kerry-Ann to today's session. I can't think of anyone better to present on emotional intelligence. And Kerry-Ann, I hand it over to you.
Excellent stuff. Thanks so much, Sam, and a very warm welcome to all of you that have come online today. It's really exciting to be finishing off on such a high note. So if you've been on the previous 5 sessions, well done. I will try as much as possible to keep the great learning going. So Sam's already shared with you what I'm going to be covering. So I want to start off by just getting straight into it. I want to have a look at life in a VUCA world. I mean, wow, the last 8 to 10 weeks have been absolutely phenomenal. I remember walking into my husband's office on Thursday, it was the 12th of March, and I remember saying to him, babe, all my training's been cancelled, all my workshops have been cancelled for the next while. And, you know, that was the beginning for me of COVID-19. And of course, we've gone through such a big change worldwide since then, haven't we? And so let's discuss what VUCA is. So Sam's already given the game away around what VUCA stands for, but I really want to just position it in terms of, I think that leadership, in order for us to really take and use what we can from the last 10 weeks, is to become more conscious about who we are and what we stand for as leaders, and how we can then extrapolate that into our teams and into the goals and the visions that we have for the next few weeks, months, etc., as we start to come out of lockdown and go into life as, I guess, normal, new normal that we're going to create. And so just to position VUCA, I think that throughout the past decades, you know, we found numerous terms in popular business press and academic literature that refer to an increasing inability to grasp the world and deal with the things that are happening around us, because the pace is so exponential. You know, so examples include uncertainty, turbulence, rapid change, dynamism, disruption, complexity, hyper-competition, and hyper-velocity markets. You know, trying to make sense of this as a CEO or as a leader, leaders are referring more and more to the environment in terms of VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And so just to give you a bit of history around where VUCA comes from, VUCA was initially used by the US Army War College to describe the more volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous multilateral worlds that were perceived as resulting from the Cold War era in the early 1990s. And further to this have been the extreme change in the way that war was done. Think of Afghanistan and Iran and the new way of engaging in warfare. It completely changed the nature of how we engaged. And so we extrapolate and we bring that into the world in which we work today. You know, unsurprisingly, the world in which we now work has changed in a very similar way. You know, just like warfare, business in the 21st century will never be the same again, especially since 10 weeks ago, when basically life as we know it has completely transformed. And I predict that just as the 20th century rules, economics, dynamics have become obsolete and will continue to change in this VUCA world, so this time when we look back on it, we will be amazed, surprised at what we've been able to achieve as a result of moving through it. So now that an organization's strategies are spared today in this VUCA world, you know, our experiences, dogmas, paradigms must all come under scrutiny. It's no longer a case of finding the one way or the management or leadership tool. No, standards have given way to individuality and tailoring to a particular and specific environment. And that, I believe, is the challenge facing you as leaders moving on in terms of where we're from. So what does this mean for your role as a leader? Well, I bet my bottom dollar that you are responsible for the lion's share of the decisions made about the parameters that define how your organization can operate. And so the increase in VUCA means that you and your business must now seek new orientations and take a fresh approach to management. And only then will you be guaranteed. And even then, success is not even guaranteed in these changed circumstances. I think what VUCA allows us to do, it challenges us to find ways through our own journey. And that, I believe, is exciting. Now, I think in order for us to do this, though, we have got to have a very good handle on the science, the psychology around this, and we need to learn how to develop empathetic behavior. So in short, I believe that we've got to become more concerned with human beings and their needs, so the people within our teams. So I believe that meaning and purpose take a central role to how we're going to be dealing with business going forward. So let's have a look at VUCA very briefly. And I just want to, as Whoopi Goldberg said, and I love what she said here, I just want to pull this to the side. Oops, I've just done something. I'm not sure what I just did. I hope I didn't completely move everything around. I'm going to get into trouble here. I'm going to go into volatility. Volatility refers to the speed of change. So if we look at what VUCA actually means, volatility is speed. And the more volatile the world is, the more and faster things change. I think this is important for us to understand. One of the examples that I think I'd like to just share with you, in fact, a few examples, is that what is true today is not true necessarily tomorrow. So even the nature and dynamics of change. You know, so products that are obsolete are an absolute success today, in a year's time, they can be out of business. And I mean, this has been really quite confronting in terms of COVID, where successful, thriving retail outlets, coffee shops that were teeming with customers overnight. I mean, there are these amazing panoramas where people are sharing with us their videos of emptiness, where there used to be so many people, there's now nothing happening anywhere. And I think products that are an absolute success today can also be worthless in a year's time. So think about 10 years, less than 10 years ago, BlackBerry saw exponential growth. It was at the top of its game, and competing touch phone screens, smartphones couldn't spoil the party until the launch of the iPhone. Because of the iPhone, the sale of BlackBerries collapsed 2 years later. Or take the world of banking. When suddenly faced with negative interest rates, and I'm going to suggest that there's going to be some very interesting economic changes in the next few months, and we need to think about this. So in 2008, the previously unthinkable situation completely changes some of the fundamental banking business models. And I'm just wondering what other things are going to be changing in our worlds in the next few weeks, months, etc. So that's volatility. Let's have a look at uncertainty. Uncertainty refers to the extent to which we can confidently predict the future. The more uncertain the world is, the harder it is to predict. So here we've got this idea of the world as we see it as being indefinite, not reliable, not constant, unpredictable. And I would suggest that more than ever, we live with the lack of predictability and a prospect for surprise. It's impossible to predict how markets will evolve. You know, vinyl records believed to have died out a long time ago can have a sudden revival, and fixed values in the economy and stock exchange can collapse overnight, as we've seen. And because of globalization, a relatively small cause can have a huge worldwide consequence. I think of Al Gore's climate change speech many years ago. Think of how one bank shook the world economy to its foundations in 2008. While it's relatively easy to explain all these events after the facts, what's important to understand here is that few experts could have predicted them. So let's have a look at complexity. And I'm doing this for a reason, because I think we need to be very conscious about these different terms. So complexity. So complexity refers to the number of factors that we need to take into account, their variety and the relationships between them. The more the factors, the greater their variety, and the more they're interconnected, the more complex an environment will be. So under complexity, it's impossible to fully analyze the environment, and you'd know this from your own experience over the last few months, and to come to rational, objective conclusions. So the more complex the world is, the harder it is for us to analyze and therefore extrapolate and make considered wise decisions for our future. So a simple example, cause and effect chains have been replaced by complex interconnected forces and events. I mean, I just look at how the online sphere has changed. I mean, I remember IML did this really, really well at the point when all my training customers said to me, Kerry, there's no more work. You know, we can't support you for the next few months. As I said to you, I walked into my husband's office, stunned mullet, I tell you what, because of the shock and the thought of what that impact was going to be. But looking at how we've all been able to interconnect via online has been phenomenal. And today, I would suggest that 8 weeks down the line, it's much more complex than when we first started up. So, you know, now we're working on GoToWebinar, Zoom, you know, all these different apps. But in addition to that, we need routers, Wi-Fi connections, etc. So I think that the possibilities are endless, but the realization of what complexity means, that is highly complex. Now, finally, I want to just briefly touch on ambiguity. So ambiguity refers to the lack of clarity that we have about something. The more ambiguous the world is, the harder it is for us to see what's going on with it. So I would suggest, to you that it's a lack of clarity. So a situation is ambiguous. For example, when information is, I'm just sorry, I've got a screen on here that shouldn't be here. Again, I'm going to get myself into horrendous trouble here. Can everyone see? Okay, good. All right. So I just want to bring up this idea that the more generally it refers to fuzziness and vagueness in ideas and terminology, the harder things will be to interpret. So building onto what I've already shared with you. And so an example is milk good or is it bad for you? You know, what's the cost of nuclear energy versus wind energy? Are internal social media such as Yammer more important or not? Just seeing a message come through here, which says to me that there's some sort of problem going on. What have I done? Okay, great. All right, so I've done something, but that's okay. You don't need to see me as long as I just keep going here. All right, so I want you to understand here that off the back of VUCA, that what we're seeing here is that there's this intense impact on our bodies, our brains, our minds, our thoughts and emotions. So I want you to be aware of this and cognitive about it, because I would say to you that negative stress is one of the effects of VUCA, and you've seen this. So I bet my bottom dollar, this is not going to surprise you. But here's the thing. I would suggest to you that stress doesn't have to be negative. Negative stress is the impact of VUCA when we are being unconscious about how we show up as a leader. And that often will have a roll-on effect. So negative stress will lead to dysfunctional thinking. I call that stinking thinking, and that can lead to isolation and rejection, whereas you may well be someone who is being rude and obnoxious. You're not meaning to be, but hey, that leads to therefore rejection. And so that's the first part of it, right? I call that our internal game. And then we need to understand that our internal game is going to impact on our relationships. In other words, our social connections, our external game. So we're going to find that, you know, when we're rude and obnoxious because we're feeling anxious inside, that it causes misunderstandings in the people that we work with. And so therefore we may well make hasty choices that we regret. We may say things that we know we shouldn't say. Or at the other extreme, we can tend to hide or avoid interacting with others because we're so fearful. So, you know, this looks pretty bad. And I would suggest to you that, you know, we want to be able to, as leaders, turn this around. And just as my other fellow facilitators have done with you today, my passion is in helping you to understand that the brain of the problem is the brain of the solution. Yes, things don't look great in a VUCA world, but I would suggest to you that there is a way to change our paradigms. And so I call this a reframe. And a reframe is a powerful tool used in positive psychology, which allows us to take a current situation which may be affecting us negatively or positively, and then look at it from a different perspective. So this allows us to reframe a situation, taking away the emotionally charged aspects of it, and to objectively look at it from a positive viewpoint. Now, what I'd like to introduce you to is if VUCA is the potentially negative way of looking at COVID. How do we change it? Well, Bill George, who's a senior fellow at Harvard Business School, defines a type of leadership that he calls VUCA 2.0. And I love it. It gives a completely new meaning to the acronym of volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity. His VUCA is a little bit different. And so as I go through this, what I'm going to challenge you to do is to think about your own leadership and kind of where you are and where you've come from, because where you've come from and where you are today, you're in a much, much better place now to make an informed decision about what your future looks like. And I'm going to give you some questions for each of these VUCA pieces. So let's start off with V for vision. So we take volatility and we turn it on its head, and we say that when we are looking from a positive paradigm, we're looking at vision. So now's the time, seeing as we have now moved out of lockdown and we're starting to talk about the potential for moving back into our workplaces. I want you to think about developing a new vision about what you want from your current leadership, team, organization. What do you want the situation to transform into? You know, when things break down, it means that the old vision is morphing into something new, and you can have a real influence on what that vision can be. And so the questions that I want you to consider is, number one, what do I see? So, you know, I'm hoping that you've made space, you've made time to observe what's going on out there in the world, what's going on inside you as a result of that. Number two, what opportunities are opening up for you as a result of all that's going on? You know, 10 weeks ago, I was feeling pretty stressed because I was juggling face-to-face, back-to-back workshops in the midst of trying to complete, and at that point, I was 13 months into developing my women's leadership program. Let me tell you, it's very stressful trying to go and juggle those two arms. And then, of course, then you've got these other roles of mom, wife, etc., friend, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so I was extremely stressed, and I was so grateful in a way for COVID. And I know that sounds terrible, but for the first 2 weeks, I just got head down, bum up. I didn't listen to what was going on out there. I just focused on finishing my women's leadership program. And as a result of that, I was then able to come up and go, but hang on, there's a lot more opportunities here that I hadn't actually anticipated before COVID for my program. And the same has happened within IML. I mean, today wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the conversations that we've been having with you out there as our leaders. So what opportunities are opening up for you? And thirdly, how can you adapt to meet this new world? Because I would suggest that your skill set has grown in the last 10 to 12 weeks. Number two, I want to have a look at uncertainty, and I want to reframe it to being understanding. So understanding is about being able to understand and recognize that our, I'm going to call them black and white solution, often patched together to try and make sense of a complex situation, just won't work anymore. So what worked 10 weeks ago won't work today. And so you and I, we're being called to move into a deeper understanding of and recognizing that the world can never be fully understood, and that we can only develop solutions for the current situation, which will continue to change. You know, your challenge is to understand the world, that the world will continue to break down and to change, and your job is to continue to transform along with it. How exciting is that? The idea of lifelong learning is amazing. So questions. Number one, what challenges are facing my clients, my stakeholders, my team? If you start to really get down into the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts of what those challenges are, then you will have a new language to frame up for your boss, for your clients, how you can actually make sense for them of some of the pain points they're experiencing. And the idea would be to follow up with that is, what solutions could you then come up with to solve these challenges? I would suggest that, you know, right now there's an amazing opportunity to get in there, boots and all, and to try things that we've never tried before in this new time and age. And then the next piece is compassion. So we're going to take compassion, we're going to turn complexity on its head. Complexity is all about fear, angst, stress. And I would suggest to you that the antidote to that is compassion. You know, when things break down, there'll often be a lot of fear as people face a situation that they find difficult. And I don't know about you, but I experienced this with one of my wonderful men in my coaching group. He came to me. I think we were about 6 weeks into COVID, and we had his next session, his next coaching session, and he'd had to do a whole bunch of stuff with me. There's always lots of work to do, and he'd had to do all of this work with me, and he hadn't been able to get to it. In fact, he'd said to me, Kerry, very tellingly, Kerry, I sat and I watched your video 4 times. Kerry, do you know that I was not able to assimilate even one thought those 4 times? And so straight away I said to him, you know what, let's just call him Ron. Ron, let's just put to the side all that you've been having to do. I just want to talk to you about what's going well for you. I want to talk about you today. And so just being able to recognize and come alongside people is often huge in times of fear. And I think the best thing that we can do for our people is not to berate them for being afraid, but to actually sit with them in their fear, to have compassion and empathy, to help them see the opportunity in the breakdown. And I can promise you, by the end of my hour and a half with Ron, he was in a very different space. I could hear his language was different. I could feel his energy was different. Yeah, it was pretty special to be able to walk alongside him. And so from a compassion perspective, I want you to think about the following 2 questions. Number 1, how can I show care to my clients, my stakeholders, my team? Now, these could be tiny little things, and I'll share with it very shortly. I've got some other pieces that I want to give to you around overcoming the negative effects of VUCA. But these are tiny things. It could be making a cup of tea for someone. The other day, I had a friend, she laughs. I'll call her Susie. And Susie has, as she laughingly said to me, over the last 2 months, she has gone to 4 different continents. She's had 1 funeral, she's had 4 lockdowns, and she's had 1 fracture. And so I was making some food for her on Sunday night for her and her family because she's unable to walk around. She broke her foot the other day, and then she slipped her disc, and now she can't move at all. So, you know, how can I show care? I could make some food. I mean, I can't do a whole bunch of things, but I can make food. And so I was able to take her some food. And so that's the one thing. The other thing is, you know, what's the best thing that I can do for myself right now? You know, so we need to look after ourselves just as much as we need to look after those people out there. So I know for me, having compassion for myself, I noticed that once I'd finished my women's leadership program, that's when my reality struck. That's when I had my moment of, oh my gosh, life will never be the same. And so for me, instead of saying, Kerry, you idiot, why are you feeling this way? I was able to say, it's okay, girl. It's okay. You got this. And you're going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And then lastly, agility and adaptability. So here we're turning ambiguity on its head. And so where things are breaking down, it means that old paradigms and structures are reforming. And where they are reforming, your ability to adapt is crucial. Adaptability calls on us to be mentally and emotionally flexible in order to adjust to the new situation. So it's time right now, ladies and gents, to move out of your old paradigms and to discover a new way of looking at your world. So some questions. Number 1, what skill sets are going to be needed within your organization, your industry in the next few months? Number 2, what is your value add to your role as a result of that? Remember thinking back to some of the challenges that your clients, your stakeholders, your boss are experiencing. And number 3, how could you increase profits and decrease unnecessary overheads? It doesn't matter where in the company you sit, there is always an opportunity to focus on profit and decrease those unnecessary overheads. What could you be doing? Every little bit helps. And so what we've had a look at here is changing our paradigms from VUCA, volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous, to having a vision, looking at the world with understanding, showing up with compassion for ourselves and others, and the ability to agilely adapt to our situations. You see, there are some questions that I want you to have a look at. Number one, which of these 4 reframe versions of VUCA resonates most with you, and why do you say this? Number 2, which resonates the least, and why do you say this? And then how can you use a reframe to help you see situations and people from a different, more positive perspective? So there's quite a lot of questions here that I am anticipating. If what I'm saying is resonating, you will take time to go away and ponder. As Shauna Core said, now I'm not sure if Jackie would have shared this, because I know Jackie and I love Shauna Core. You are up to 31% more productive in positive than in neutral, negative, or stress. And so our ability to see the world positively is critical to our success. And so as I start to end off today, what I want to do is I want to have a look at 2 ways to develop yourself and others in overcoming the overwhelm of VUCA, and to help our people move forward in a way that's constructive. So first up, I want to have a look at our internal game. And here I'm looking at you becoming more conscious and connected with yourself. And I'm just going to put out there that I believe that most of the leaders that I know and work with want to be happy, fulfilled, and add value to the community in which you live. And secondly, most of the leaders that I know and work with have areas of their lives which are getting in the way of their success and happiness. Having the courage to face our fears and work through these areas of our lives that aren't working means hard work, commitment, and discipline. And this is over and above all the work that we've already been doing in this VUCA time of COVID. And so we have to make space. I'm telling you right now, often what I find in my leadership programs is that, and in IML programs, that unless you make time for yourself, the work that we do in those classrooms is not going to be transposed in a way that's going to be conducive for you. So really important that you recognize that. So I'm just going to put out there that, and this is something that I really believe very strongly, is that working on your inside game changes literally everything that you do and say. The quality of your relationships in your life, your experiences, who you attract to you, the kinds of opportunities that come your way, and of course, the confidence you feel about yourself and how you show up as a result. And I believe that due to the never-ending cycle of our VUCA environment, we have to daily take time to consciously connect and recharge our spirits, our souls, our bodies, and our minds. So, sad truth is that most of us live such intense lives, and we've come out of such an intense time of constant juggling, trying to get everything done and trying to meet everyone's needs and expectations, that we very rarely have time for ourselves, let alone time to be conscious and connect with our soul, body, spirit, and mind. But as we are learning, it's really important. And secondly, I would suggest to you that it's critical to do less than more so that we can achieve our dreams and our goals. And so how do we become more conscious and connected? 3 super simple ways. Create daily habits like gratefulness, journaling, and reaching out to a social network. So let me just explain this really briefly. Gratefulness. I'm going to do a quick exercise with you right now. Right, so if you've gone off on a journey of self-discovery, come back to me right now. I'm absolutely fine with that. So gratefulness is the ability when you notice something negative to turn it around by being grateful for something else. So let me tell you how it works. I want you to go back to your first thought that you had this morning. Your first thought. You know when you woke up this morning? I want you to go back to that first thought. And of course, we're not going to be sharing this, so this is all good. It's all private and confidential. What I want you to do is I want you to just go back. Was it a positive thought or was it a negative thought? Okay, so I'm not going to know what your answers are, but I am going to extrapolate here. So in IML classrooms, when I ask this question, 95% of people tell me that they have oh no moments more than they have oh yes moments when they wake up. And so the antidote to this is just recognizing it, not judging it. You know, we don't have to judge it. We're set for threat. We're not set for reward. So we've actually got to overcome this VUCA mindset of ours. It's normal, it's natural for us to be set for threat. And we need to then step into reward state. Reward state is what we're made for, but we don't just get there just because. No, we've got to be conscious around that. So a little gratefulness each day won't hurt anyone. And by the way, gratefulness, you've got to be grateful for something new each day. You can't be grateful for the same thing that you were grateful for yesterday. 2, if you were to journal the things that you are excited about, that you've had wins about, this creates an opportunity for your brain to savor. And this is particularly important when you have gone through a time like we've gone through now. I would suggest that you have a look back over the last 10 weeks and you think about, hey, what are the things that I have been really proud of having accomplished? Who are the people that I've been able to bring through? Or who are the people that have given me stuff that I've learned from? And we journal that. I don't know if you're aware of this, but our brain has got an amazing capacity for learning. The problem is most of us not being conscious and connected with ourselves enough, and we've got a repository in our brain. Most of us, 90% of our brains are a repository for negative thoughts, feelings, and memories. But if we were to journal, and this is what the research is showing us, is that when you journal the good stuff and you're having a bad day, you come back and you look at that stuff and you savor and you remember. And therefore you are brought to that next level and you're able to move out of the funk and into the forward. Number 3, reaching out to your social network or praising or thanking someone for something they've done or who they are in your life. This is so easy. And yet we don't always take the time to do this. I love it when I get a thank you. Hey, Kerry, you did this really well. I'm so appreciative of you. You know, those little pieces really make a difference in someone's life. And so especially because we've been so intrusive into each other's lives over the last while in terms of all our meetings are happening in our homes. You know, our homes have become public domains almost, that, you know, people have been able to look in and see, you know, what we eat, who we eat, drink, and sleep with every day. Because, you know, sometimes these children come into our meetings. I know my child wanted to come into one of my coaching sessions the other day, and, you know, we've had to learn how to do things differently. So reaching out to someone in your social network and just praising them can make a world of difference. And it's a habit, a simple habit. Now, lastly, I want to share with you how to overcome VUCA in terms of the social connections. We've looked at the internal. I want to go to the external because this is possibly one of the biggest effects that we're going to be seeing coming out of VUCA. There's going to be a lot of need out there, I predict, around people feeling the need to be socially connected with one another. And so I know that VUCA can often get in the way of relationships because of stressful deadlines, constantly moving goalposts. They all contribute to negative emotions such as hurt, anger, and impatience with the people that we work with. And in our frustration, we often describe those relationships that are not going well as being difficult. But the truth of the matter is that we've contributed in some way to the circumstances of that difficult situation. And so, yes, I believe that we are part of the problem just as much as we are part of the solution. And this is the key to developing socially. So I would suggest to you, as Mike Holmes says, is that we need to, I guess, find ourselves some real foundational truths. And I don't know if those are quotes or if those are, you know, advice that people have given us. Mike says it really nicely. He says, I believe in you. believe in yourself, and be positive. So how do we do the social connection thing? Well, I've got a few ideas here because I think these are things that are really important. So listen to understand with empathy and compassion. I would suggest to you that just being able to listen to people in this day and age, how are you going? What's happening for you? How can I help you? Goes a long way. So in this, making time each day to phone your team. You know, I found that a lot more of us are extending our working hours. We're working much longer hours. So instead of having just an 8 or a 9 hour day, we've got an extra 2 to 3 hours tacked onto the end of that, because we've got, in addition to what we're already doing, we've got organizations that have been in absolute chaos, and then we've still got to do homeschooling, and you know, this has all been terribly confronting and intrusive. So off the back of that, we've got to create opportunities to have fun, both individually and also with others. I would suggest to you, and this comes off the back of yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, I was doing a masterclass at IML where we were talking about being able to structure your meetings so that everyone can contribute and has a voice. And I think this is really important. You know, our quieter individuals will still stay quiet online, and you've seen this. So we need to be able to, whether we, you know, change around the structure, maybe give agendas beforehand, ask people to, you know, prepare something. Very important that we do that. And then we want to be able to create assignments where your team has opportunity to partner with other team members. You know, maybe it's with partners that are different to them. I don't know what it is, but, you know, social connections are so crucial. So just very aware of my timing. I've got a message right now. Thank you very much to Libby to say, Kerry, come on, we want to wrap this up. So questions to consider are as follows. As we start to wrap this up, now that we understand what VUCA means, how do you believe that you've been impacted by each of these 4 characteristics? Which effects of VUCA spoke to you most, and why? Whether it's the positive VUCA or the negative VUCA. And so what, as a result of that, are some of the things that you know work that could help you to overcome VUCA in your own life and the life of your team members? And in terms of taking all of what I've shared with you and thinking about what the next steps would be, we're coming to the end of our 6 sessions, our virtual training day. And I want you to consider what your strengths are. I want you to think about how these help or hinder you, and how potentially you could adapt or flex to increase your effectiveness. You've got a lot of learning from all the facilitators today. And the idea would then be to take the ideas that you have been given and to think about which of these would be most useful. And I wouldn't say that you take all of them, just take 1 to 3. 1 to 3 ideas shared today could be most useful to apply and work on over the next 21 days. Because yeah, it takes 21 days to create a unstable neural pathway. It takes another 2 lots of 21 days to create a stabilized neural pathway or a habit. And that's really what we at IML are seeking to do, is to help you to create positive leadership habits that are going to move you forward into the next part of what this exciting situation has brought us to. So yes, we can look at all the negatives, but I'm encouraging you to focus on the positive. So in summary, we've had a look at what is VUCA, the negative VUCA. We've looked at the effects of that negative VUCA, and then we've looked at how to overcome it, both with the VUCA 2.0, as well as this idea of internal and external, consciously connected and socially connected. And so, one last thought before I hand back over to Sam is, those who adapt the best are the ones who thrive. And so I'm really excited to pass the baton over to you in order for you to make time now to thrive and flourish. And I just am hoping that you will be blessed in enjoying each moment more. So that's the end of what I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to now hand back over to Sam for some questions that potentially he wants to show up with.
Thank you very much. Wonderful presentation, and so timely in the current situation, how our mindset, certainly through this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, how we can adapt that into a positive mindset. I took a lot out of it, and I know there's a lot of questions here that we need to get through before we can let you go for the afternoon. And thank you so much for doing the. Someone did comment that we gave the women the graveyard shift. We gave them the last 3 slots, and the men got the morning shift. I didn't have a part in that. That was how it was designed. But thank you very much for giving up your time late in the afternoon. Certainly the comments here reflect that the audience enjoyed it. Let's get to a couple of these questions. How do you? Okay, so this is probably a more personal question. How do you advise on repairing a relationship that's gone sour at this time, so through this period? I challenged my boss's authority about a month ago, and I'm still suffering ill feeling. We haven't really addressed the situation in the relationship yet. How would you bring that up, and how would you deal with that?
Wow. Okay, so that's the compassion piece that I'm hearing right there. And I just want to say thanks for being so honest, for bringing that up. I think there's been a lot of relationships that have been affected over this last while. Perhaps one of the things that I suggest is that, on reflection, there's always things that we could do differently. And so perhaps there's those 2 little words. I'm sorry for the part that I played in what happened is possibly a good entry point. And then being able to just clarify, I call it the I care model. So, I really value the relationship. I stands for I, and I is about identifying what the outcome is, the positive outcome that I get from that. And I would suggest that when I want to identify, let me just start again. That sounded a bit confused. I would start off by saying that I value the relationship, and I recognize that over the last month, we've had an opportunity to think about what happened. And so I'm just really conscious and hopeful that you can share with me your thoughts around what happened and what you think we could do to repair this relationship, because I really believe going forward that I would like to be able to continue the kind of relationship that we had prior to our misunderstanding. I think compassion is a really important part to play. And I mean, the fact that you are so vulnerable in sharing this and authentic, I think says a lot about you. So I wouldn't be surprised that your manager would be open to hearing your side of the story. But I would get his or her input to begin with. So I hope that clarifies. I know I started off by a little bit confusing you, but hopefully that.
Thanks, Kerry Ann. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that to solve problems. How do we avoid burnout? We've got all these pressures. How do we avoid burnout?
Okay, well, I guess what I'm saying to you around VUCA 2.0 is that I think we need to be making time to allow for conscious connection with ourselves. I recognize that we have more on our plates than ever before, and therefore it is more incumbent on us to take responsibility to say, hey, listen, on a Saturday morning between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, that's when I'm going to be doing my IML leadership review. That's when I'm going to be doing my coaching session. That's when I'm going to be going for my run. That's when I'm going to be doing my Pilates. I'm meeting up with my friend, whatever. So I think that in order for you to get to burnout, there are a number of telltale signs and symptoms that if we're not awake and aware and conscious and connected enough with ourselves, we'll push past that, we'll suppress it. So I think all of what I've said today hopefully will give you some simple tools. You know, just asking yourself the question. It's a self-care question. What's the best thing that I can do for myself right now? It's Friday afternoon. I know when we're finished this, we have booked as an IML team, we've booked to have a virtual celebratory drink to say, well done. All the hard work that we've done, we want to celebrate it. You know, and it's making these moments to connect with others that helps us to move forward.
Thanks, Kerry, and I'm certainly looking forward to that IML drink at the end. It's been a great day. How do we approach a manager that doesn't handle change or crisis well? How do you tell them offending them? So this is, I guess, at a senior manager level, looking up. How do you approach it, and how do you do it without offending someone?
Oh, there's two pieces to this. So straight away, I'm going to say you've got to watch your intent. I don't think that we can avoid offending people. I think we live in quite an offensive society where people take offense quite easily. But I think the big piece here is your intention. I mean, the fact that you're asking that question says to me, again, same as the previous few questions that I've heard, that you are an authentic leader who is really looking and seeking for answers. So you'll find the right answers. Listen, you can take a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. However, what you can do is you can outline a simple framework. And the simple framework is, I value you. This is what I'm looking for. I want to retain the relationship. This is what I'm seeing. So observe and share back what you're observing in terms of behavior. So, you know, you wouldn't want to go there and label it as, you know, you are change resistant. No, that's going to get us into trouble. But if we were to put it in the way of, I notice when I share with you ideas around how we potentially could move forwards, and you have said to me, but this is a problem. You've said, you know, you've told me that this is not going to work. You've said X, Y, Z. I've noticed that that's what's happening. And so I wanted to talk to you about that because it's getting in the way of me being able to move forward. And I'm wondering, you know, how could we solve that problem together? You know, I think it's about, and again, my words and the way that I've just shared that probably wouldn't be the way that you would share it. But you're hearing the value proposition up front. You always want to, you know, tell them that you value that relationship. You always want to then get their input around what they're observing. And then 3, you want to be able to share your perspective on it. And then 4th, you want to invite them back into the conversation so that you can work on it together and they feel included.
Great response, Carrie-Anne. And look, this one might be a similar question. If you're agile and adaptable, but you're working with someone that perhaps isn't, how do you recommend to influence that? Would that be in a similar approach that you've just explained?
Yeah, I think so. I think for a lot of us, in terms of leadership, I think, you know, we can assume a lot about someone and then we can be hideously wrong. So I think as much as possible, behavior is such a good tool to begin with. So behavior is what people say and what they do, right? And so just being able to reference, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I've heard, this is what you said, is usually a good factual way of introducing what potentially could be quite a volatile or emotionally volatile topic in a way that's factual. How they respond to you will determine your next course of action, you know, and that's another course.
It is, Carrie-Anne, there's questions here that we won't get to, and we'll take them on notice, and we will cover that with you, Kerry, and try to get a response to the participants. There are some, and I guess this topic has probably brought out some more personal questions about challenges people are facing in their own environment, and I guess that probably requires a more personal response that we might not do. So we might just end that there, Carrie-Anne, and thank you so much for your time. One of the things you mentioned that I found really interesting in the piece was about opportunities and about how opportunities are created through situations. And obviously, we can't do face-to-face training and learning and development like we normally do as an institute. Today's session was born out of the fact that we couldn't do a face-to-face large open day session that we would normally do at one of our offices around Australia or New Zealand. We would normally deliver them to 300 people who might come and they might attend and they might enjoy it and they leave. Today we've been able to deliver it to 8,500 registrations. That's the opportunity that I think has been enormous through this period, that we would normally speak to 300 managers and hopefully give them something to take away. Today I hope we've spoken to the majority of those 8,000 in the sense that they can take something away with them from across from all the 6 presentations today. And once again, the emotional intelligence discussion, the VUCA discussion that you presented, Kerry-Ann, and the positive light that we take forward in terms of understanding how we can adapt better and be positive about that situation. I hope people can take that away with them and use that action plan to implement into their workforce to get better outcomes for themselves. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you very much to the participants. I think it's the last session and the sign off, and we thank you very much for your support of the Institute. It's been a wonderful day. It's been a full day of learning. We've had 6 of our best facilitators, 6 of the leading facilitators in Australia, on 6 great topics that are relevant for businesses and individuals and managers and leaders. And everyone's played their part, and I thank you so much. We will send you a final wrap-up report with all of these recordings, with all of the resources and all of the learnings and the slides. They will come, I should say, they will come on Monday morning, okay, because it does take some time to download all these recordings and get all the slides and that preparation. So please be a little bit patient with that. They will come on Monday morning. So you'll have all of that. But as I said, on behalf of the Institute, I hope you've taken some things away from the 6 sessions. We had Shannon Cooper on painstorming in uncertainty. We had Matthew Byrne on maintaining momentum, Rob Brennan on the virtual team tip sheet, Kerry Irwin on coaching, Jackie Perkins on building your team's resilience, and Kerry-Ann Cassidy on emotional intelligence. If you'd like to get in touch with these facilitators, with IML, to develop something for you personally or to develop something for your team or your organisation, we are here to help. We're here to partner with you to support you through that, and we'd love to hear from you. So please get in touch at info@managersandleaders.com.au. That's info@managersandleaders.com.au, or our number 1300 661 061. On behalf of the IML team, on behalf of all the facilitators who presented today, I thank you so much again for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.